Hi, everyone, and welcome to Elevated, Caltech Center for Technology and Management Education's podcast about the intersection of technology, leadership, and project management. I'm your host, Jen Garcia, the AI Tools Instructor and AI Strategy and Partnerships Lead here at CTME. Together in this show, we hope to bring facilitators, researchers, recent grads of PhD, wonderful dissertations to share practical insights for leading complex, high-impact projects. We're also excited to premiere our newest AI for Project Management course that we'll be sharing more about at the end and providing you all with the link. So let's get started. Today, I'm really excited to invite my wonderful guest here, Melody McClaren, who has an incredibly pertinent to us project management's focus in social entrepreneurship. Now, Melody has a fantastic career that makes a lot of sense when you put it all together. And I'd love for her to introduce herself and share a bit about that career of yours.
Well, thanks, Jen. It's fantastic to be here at Caltech. A little fact that you may not be aware of out in the world, but I am, I was going to say, a very old graduate of Caltech. I got my bachelor's degree in 1977. So next year, I'm celebrating my half century as a Caltech alum. And since graduation, I've had a very varied career, which does include project management, but it includes lots of other things. To the point where my my mother, despaired, saying, "It's just a random walk." But what's been great for me, and I think it helps when you're 50 years on, you can look back on your career and see the coherence that may not have been apparent to one's parents and loved ones at the time. And I can say now, I understand what I was doing it more clearly. And I've had various sojourns into tech through Silicon Valley, being a project director and a client services director, all the way to the UK, where I lived for 38 years and had the thrill of doing things as obscure as writing speech drafts for the Prince of Wales, who was president of Business of the Community, where I worked for many years. But I've had other experiences as well, and I'd like to think that I'm better off for having done it.
That's fantastic. Now, just to circle back to the your Caltech experience, you tell us a little bit more. You're part of the history here. You were a freshman at a very important inflection point here.
Yes, yes. So Caltech went co-ed in 1970. That means that the very first class that had women in it, and I believe there were about four of them, graduated in 1974. So those women were seniors when I came in as a freshman in 1973, and I was part of a class of 220. There were 24 women in that class. So we were still in the early stages of integrating women into undergraduate life, and that had all sorts of, well, adventures for all of us. But I appreciate that they let me in, and I got to be part of Caltech history.
That is fantastic. And I was not only am I impressed with your career in general, but you were a freshman at 16 years old.
Yes, yes, I came in 2 years earlier than normal. I was going to say normal. There were there were no normal people at Caltech, but the average age starting at Caltech was usually 18. But there were people, I think, who may have been even younger than I was.
Wow.
But yes, that was good for me in a way that I feel like I was raised socially by my many brothers who were also Caltech undergraduates. And I'm still really close to the other women I went through Caltech with. In fact, we were all on Zoom together just this past Sunday.
Wow.
So,
I love this. I love this. And we're going to hear more about
yeah.
your involvement with Caltech at the end. Let's start chatting about about how your focus of social entrepreneurship and your study and research in that, how first of all, why did you choose that? And then I want to hear the tie-in into how it relates to project management.
Okay. Well, social entrepreneurship I feel more like it chose me rather than I chose it. One of the big long phases of my career was the responsible business movement in the UK, and I worked uh, for many years for Business in the Community, which was a Prince of Wales charity which promoted corporate social responsibility and had many large companies in membership. So I started out as a corporate writer, became an account manager. For a while, I ran the IT department. And my final title was as learning development director in the early 2000s. And I got to understand in quite a bit of depth what it's like when you are inside a company trying to promote social and environmental value in a big commercial organization that wasn't probably designed for that purpose. So there were many, you get a real sense of the hybrid logic you're trying to create, the friction between trying to make profits and trying to create social and environmental good. So I went to Business of the Community in 1990, got to follow a 35-year arc looking at the responsible business movement and learning about the people in it and the challenges they faced. Social entrepreneurship came up as a topic when I went to Cranfield School of Management back in 2009 and joined Professor David Grayson there initially as a writer, but then I became an interviewer and started interviewing people, telling their stories about what it was like being inside big companies and trying to get these amazing social environmental projects off the ground. And sometimes, it was very challenging for them, but I was always fascinated by their energy.
And that's what social entrepreneur, define it for us, for our
Okay.
viewers who are new to this
Okay.
concept. Yes.
So you may have heard of social entrepreneurs, who are people who start organizations which create social and environmental positive value. And loads of those are out in the world. Social entrepreneurship is the same thing, but starting a project inside a larger organization, usually a commercial one. So you may be in the middle of an organization, you may be an engineer, you may be in marketing, you could be in any function, but you decide based on your prior experience, going right back into your own personal history and your position in the organization, that you want to start something that creates social and environmental good. But it's not easy to do. So there are many challenges. Quite a few of the social entrepreneurs I interviewed in my research talked about having to fly under the radar for years sometimes while they got their projects off.
Yes, do tell us more about the stages of social entrepreneurship, because I find them so fascinating. And I think that many of our listeners will identify and see themselves in these stages.
Right. Well, people who see themselves as potential social entrepreneurs often have had very interesting early histories before they ever got to the company that they're in. Quite a few of them that we interviewed were interested in nature or in poverty alleviation. Maybe they did a gap year, went to India, saw things, and they wanted to make a difference. But now they're in a commercial organization and wondering how to do that. So they've already done what I call early career work, where they've gotten their values, they've started a career, maybe, they're in engineering or marketing, etc. And they tend to be quite good at their day jobs, but they want to do something more. So so they do something that's very important, which is the relational work, forming those networks with people inside the organization, mainly by doing their day jobs. They get people to trust them because they deliver on their day jobs, and some of them have been doing it for years and years, so that when they decide they want to start something, those people in that personal network are where they start.
When you first told me about this part of the stage, I thought that's exactly what project managers do. They are already relationship building because they
Yes.
need to make sure that their stakeholders feel valued and have buy-in and feel communicated with. And so this is some work that they're already doing within their roles, and they're masters at it because, or and becoming masters as well and learning and developing
Yes.
always. But when you had mentioned that to me in our serendipitous meeting at the library in Long Beach, I realized, wow, there's a tie-in here into what project managers already do and how they can maybe move into a role like this within their organizations. So tell us more about the next stages.
Okay. Well, project managers, the ones who were good, already have these networks in place.
Mm.
And so what they have to do is internally sell the idea to others. And the networks that get formed often take very distinctive shapes. So sometimes the person you decide you're going to tell your project idea to could be your line manager, could be someone, a colleague at your level of hierarchy in the organization. But to really get the thing going, you have to mobilize resources. And well, who can do that? Budget holders, people who maybe are a little higher up in the organization, who might be able to put some money aside or give you access to resources that you wouldn't otherwise have. So those folks have the social entrepreneurs have very cleverly started to form relationships with people who can release resources to get their projects off the ground. Now, the way you do that pitch can vary. If you're going to a finance director, you've got to have your spreadsheets, you've got to have your numbers all clearly laid out. But sometimes, and you have to judge your audience, sometimes the emotional pitch also works. So if you tell a story to a person in management saying, our company could be so much more, we could be doing these things that make an impact on stakeholders, our external stakeholders in the world, that appeals too. But the thing that social entrepreneurs who succeed are good at is reading the room in a big way. They read the relationships they've got with the people who they really want to go to, and they're not manipulating them, they're listening to them. And I was involved in trying to see how social entrepreneurship is a bit like jazz. And I wound up co-authoring a book on this. And people said, "Why is it like jazz?" Well, you've done your what's called your woodshedding. You've learned your day job, but also you've cultivated your listening skills. And you really have to do that if you're going to be either a jazz musician or somebody who runs a social entrepreneurship project. You have to be as good at listening as you are at speaking. And that has a parallel in jazz as well. It's called comping. It's supporting other musicians in your ensemble when they want to solo. So you've done the back and forth in your organization often for a very long time. And that is why people will trust you, so that when you say, I'd like to do this, they listen to you as you know, because you've spent a lot of time listening to them and you understand how they think and what will land with them. So
You've already, as you mentioned that stage, you've already done the groundwork of building that trust, building that relationship.
yes.
That's fantastic. Now, this makes me think of those who are surrounding these rising leaders and how they play a role. It brings to mind a wonderful book I was telling you about that I just finished called "This Is for Everyone" by Tim Berners-Lee. Tim Berners-Lee is the creator of the World Wide Web, and he started this initiative at CERN. And what he did was he found colleagues that could support him, that gave him access to resources, and here we are using his product. Thank goodness. Thank you, Tim. Thank you, Sir Tim. What I want to ask you is, for those who are in the managerial roles and in supervisorial, excuse me, roles, what could they do to support these rising leaders with these wonderful ideas that will change their companies?
Right. Well, it often depends on which part of the company those people, your network that you're trying to mobilize, are sitting in. For example, if you are, suppose you work in HR, one of the things you can do if you're wondering, could we have social entrepreneurs inside our company who could add value to us? Because social entrepreneurs also create commercial value through their innovative projects as well as social and environmental value. So if an HR practitioner is, say, specializing in leadership development is a way to see, do you have social entrepreneurs in your organization, potential ones? So you look at certain kinds of traits, you look at certain kinds of behaviors. Do we have people in front of us who are good at managing their own projects? Do they have interests in, say, social issues, environmental issues? Do they look like they have potential to become leaders in this organization? Yeah. The leadership lens can be really important for people who work in HR, but also for managers at every level. So seen through the leadership development lens, social entrepreneurship is a very important route that could be followed.
Thank you for those tips for them. That's fantastic. Circling back to your to the random walk of career that you mentioned you have, and God bless Mom for noting that, and giving you the idea to connect the dots. Tell us, a lot of project managers have random walks like yours, like mine. How did your choice to study social entrepreneurship, how did it arise from your seemingly disjointed? Yes.
Right. Well, okay. So there's one theme that runs through every phase of what looked like a random walk, and that was I was driven by curiosity. And that's extremely important. And it's important for project managers too. You need to stay curious. When you're curious, you're interested not just in the narrow function in which you may have a role, you're interested in everything. So social entrepreneurs, for example, they tend to be widely read, and as you are, and I kind of am. But the point is that you're interested in learning more about the world. So quite a few of my, I was going to say strange roles in my career where my mother said, I thought you were going to go to medical school, were jobs I took because I'd look at something and think, that's interesting. I don't know anything about that. I wonder if I could learn more about that. So I went and got a job in that field. Wow. And that's how I migrated, into copywriting, into tech, helping to build websites, lots of other roles that I had, each of which would have had a project management thread. I pursued those things out of curiosity. And fortunately, I was able to do it in the United Kingdom because I was curious about hula hoops as a child.
Now, we'll do a quick little segue. I want to hear just quickly about your hula hoop experience because you were a world champion.
Yeah, 1969 world champion. It's a very obscure thing to have done, but a girl who won the contest in 1968 came to our school, gave a demonstration, had this hula hoop going up and down her body, and I thought, how does she do that? See,
curiosity
kicked in, and although I was terrible at it initially, I basically locked myself in my bedroom after school for a couple of months and taught myself to do one. And once I figured out how to do one, I learned how to, I got another hula hoop from my sisters, did two, and I just kept going. And 9 months later, I won my younger sister entered me in the World Hula Hoop Championships. And I wound up winning it in 1969. Amazing. And that was curiosity. I mean, that was all down to curiosity, and curiosity in the face of clearly limited physical ability.
So on this note of curiosity, how can, project management is often defined, is always defined primarily by delivery,
Yes.
delivery of the project,
Yes.
successful delivery of the project, hopefully under budget,
Yes.
or at budget. How can, with the idea of stoking this curiosity, how can leaders in project management do both that and leave room for this pursuit of curiosity without sacrificing rigor or accountability?
Right. Okay. So the thing about curiosity and rigor is they are not mutually exclusive. That's the great thing. It's not an either or. It's a both and.
Absolutely.
And so I think in my roles as a project manager, one of the things you get curious about are the people in your team. And so you have to think about, how can we deliver this together? All project management, as far as I'm concerned, is relational.
Indeed.
You have to be able to read the people who are your colleagues and think about, okay, what might they be able to do? And so you like to instill curiosity in them as well, saying, how would you feel about learning to do this so we can deliver that? And the curiosity gets embedded in the project management process. You're trying to figure out, okay, what can we all do together? And it's not like you sit in a corner and think, I don't know how we deliver this. You have to connect with the people you're going to deliver with, because you need to know their strengths and weaknesses. What are they interested in? I mean, when I ran an IT team at Business of the Community in the early 2000s, that was, I landed, had a room full of people I'd never met. We had to build our website. We had to keep the networks running. We had to do all these things. So I was trying to figure out, well, how am I going to, do this with people I've never met before? So I met with each of them individually as well as collectively and said, what would you like to do? You have this role right now. What do you want to do with it? Would you like to develop onward from it? Because I also believe any manager should be trying to help those they manage think ahead to, what do I want to become?
I love that.
Yeah. And
I love that.
So you get them to think, what else might I be able to do? And I mean, one of the gentlemen in the team that I was looking after at Business of the Community told me 3 months later, he says, I feel completely differently about myself now. That's what you want. And so if you're curious about people, not just things and tech, you have a much better chance of bringing a project in, under budget, on time, and meet and often exceed expectations.
Wow. So many things come to mind. Number one, the curiosity, turning back to each other as humans. I mean, what more can we turn to each other as? But away from technology, away from the distraction of the cell phone and workaholism and
Not that.
yes, that is so important, especially in reestablishing the trust mesh network amongst ourselves globally and nationally. So important right now. I think about, without that curiosity, and then in order to talk to you at the library, there's a cafe in Long Beach called the Library. Shout out to them. They're so awesome. I was studying there because I didn't have Wi-Fi at the new place that I got. And so I saw your folder that said, dissertation something or PhD something.
Pieces,
Yes. And I thought, what is she working on? I am so curious. And I trusted that, I know that if I were studying something as deep as PhDs do, that I would want to talk to about it. And so I trusted that if I asked you about it, you would also want to talk about it. And I decided, although I have this email I have to get to, I'm going to take the time to ask her, "Hi, what's your name? I noticed, this PhD folder and wanted to speak with you. And now here we are. We're
Yes.
becoming friends and we have a wonderful relationship." That curiosity is so important in developing just in your everyday life
Yes.
so that you can carry it on to your coworkers and your colleagues.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Curiosity is a very global trait.
Mm.
And I mean, I like to think that we're all deep down curious about the world generally. I mean, when I was in Silicon Valley, of course, we were all curious about tech. I mean, the web was starting to take off. We were all curious about the technology, but we were also curious about, oh, what could we do with this? And particularly, what can we do with this that helps other people? I mean, because if you're going to be in a commercial business, you've got to help other people. Otherwise, why would they pay for your services? But being curious and trying to think about what could we do with this? I think if you were in Silicon Valley in the late 90s, I mean, the most bold thing I heard about anybody doing was some crazy guy named Jeff Bezos who said he was going to start this online bookstore called Amazon. And we would sit there and think, why would you want an online bookstore? This is like, 25, 26 years ago.
Yeah.
And it's why are people investing in this? Because he was able to get investors for it. And the thing is, you can see where if somebody is thinking, what if? And you take a technology like the web and you start thinking about what might be possible, there's no end to what you might do. And the little company that I worked for at the time, Galatia.com, we had a client who had a website called mortgagemart.com, and he wanted to offer mortgage applications online to people so they could get mortgages more easily. So, I mean, that may not seem like a big deal now, but back then, in the 90s, it was revolutionary. So, and then I had to be curious and try to figure out how do we build something like that. And so we worked together and with our team and produced that website and many others. But it's all driven by curiosity because you've got to go and learn the tech. I had to learn programming, which I didn't know when I walked into that to that little startup back in 1996.
Yeah.
So I had to be curious about how does the Perl language work and what could be done with it. So
That's fantastic. I think about our with project management with our stakeholders and how important it is to be curious about not only why they are indeed stakeholders and what they are concerned about within the project, but also how to best communicate with them.
To communicate with
the stakeholders. Yeah.
Stakeholders. Yes, I mean, communication is incredibly important. And one of the things I was told by a client when I worked in Silicon Valley was, you know what's good? You speak geek and plain English. And so I realized that this is something I kind of picked up doing, actually for a good chunk of my life being at the border between one domain and another and trying to figure out how do we translate what we've got in our head so that our stakeholders, our customers, people in the community, so they understand us.
Yeah.
So that's a skill that really does need to be cultivated. But I have to say the best way to do that is to listen.
Absolutely.
Listening is the only way you can hear what your stakeholders are saying, what they think about, what matters to them. That is something you have to devote quite a bit of energy to. It's not, you can't be for broadcast only.
Yeah.
You have to be
Receiving.
receiving and, thinking about, okay, people have said this to me. What does that mean? What do they want? What can I do for them? So yes, you have to really listen quite carefully to your stakeholders. Sounds simple, but sometimes it's hard.
Indeed. Indeed, it is. Another thing that came to my mind is the individual meetings that you suggested. That is so important to have individual meetings with those that you can have those meetings with, time permitting, to understand and, like you said, listen to what their needs are and how to meet those. Would you say that with the social entrepreneurship in your research, what are some other standout character skills? We'll stick with skills for now.
Okay.
What are some skills that one can develop that make for a successful social entrepreneur? Because, social entrepreneurship is project management,
Yes.
it wrapped into one, So what skills would you suggest? We got listening.
Yeah, listening's a good one.
Yeah. Yeah. What else we got?
I mean, if you are in a particular role, there's usually some sort of technical component. It sounds kind of boring to say, well, you got to do your day job.
Yeah.
But you do have to do your day job. And one of the interesting things that can fall out from your day job, the skills you develop may be beyond the narrow confines of your job. And in social entrepreneurship, there's a very specific example I'm talking about, and that is quite a few people who become social entrepreneurs were trained as engineers. And I mean, this hopefully will resonate to the Caltech community because, we produce a lot of engineers. And I wondered if that was why was that? Because a lot of times they would think about things that are beyond engineering. And somebody who was an engineer, she told me it's because engineers in their jobs, they have to figure out how things work. And that includes the companies where they work. So having curiosity about the question, how does this work in a really broad way? It applies to your narrow job, but it applies to your life, your relational life inside an organization.
Yeah.
And those things which you may not think are relevant to your project are absolutely relevant to your project. Because to make a project go inside an organization, you have to understand how the organization works. And sometimes you could be an engineer, but you could be like a marketing manager, or you could be in HR, or you could be in another function within your organization. So when I say do your day job, what I'm saying is you start from your day job. Within your day job, you develop the relational skills that allow you to find out how does the organization work and how do your stakeholders think. So yes, it's all relational. I always say it's all relational.
It's all relational. And I love the code switching that you brought up with speaking geek, so to speak, and speaking, to other stakeholders and being able to communicate and translate in that way. Question. So for so you spent, gosh, decades in UK, and now you're back, and tell me about what you're doing now. What's happening around Caltech and around your work? Tell me more about what this next season is.
I mean, I'm at the moment I'm working as a volunteer with the 2026 Alumni Reunion Committee. And it's really fun to come back because these are folks that I haven't seen. I think, it's been 50 years. So I'm actually absorbed quite a bit in trying to work with alumni to think about what was special about our Caltech experience. How could we bring that back to life in the reunion weekend, which is coming up 14th to the 17th of May. And we're working with the Caltech Alumni Association. And it's very exciting because we're going to go on trips to Mount Wilson Observatory. We're going to go to Petrilla's Pizza.
Nice.
So it's like the whole spectrum of experiences we're trying to pack into a weekend program. And it's very exciting.
And there's some, we're getting you connected with some student opportunities to speak to students and share your work.
Yes. Okay. So this is a little shout out to Phil Necker, who is class of 76 and endowed a mentorship program where alumni get to mentor undergraduate students.
Mm.
And when we connected, after all these years, he says, "All right, I'm recruiting you." So so I had that to look forward to. But he's been telling me all sorts of things about how he's been involved trying to improve the Caltech undergraduate experience for our current undergraduates. But he's done a lot of research to kind of look into what it is that keeps Caltech students going.
Mhm.
Because, I mean, if you think about it, Caltech's an amazing institution. When you come in as a student, you're being trained to one day go where no one has gone before. And so that's much, much more than just sitting in your math one, math two class, trying to, think about how do I solve the math homework.
Yeah.
The thing about Caltech is it runs on curiosity.
Mm.
And I think that, um, there might be further down the line, if I play my cards right, an opportunity to get to talk to undergraduates again about what my experience was like, and I can listen to what their experience is like.
Yeah.
I'm hoping I might get to, a chance to do that.
And what would your to not only Caltech grads and young people within this institution beyond for young people in general, what advice would you give them about not only the projects that they will be approaching and taking on in their work, but about how to develop and grow within organizations? What advice do you have for them?
Well, I mean, curiosity still applies.
Mm.
Actually, one of the best examples of somebody who was great at cultivating their curiosity and applying it in experimental ways was one of Caltech's most famous professors, who was Richard Feynman. And he wrote a great autobiography called, well, the first one was called Surely You're Joking, Mr. Feynman, Adventures of a Curious Character. And if you read it, you realize that, okay, yes, he was a Nobel Prize winning physicist, and he was a campus legend when I was here. But when you go back into his stories about his childhood, he was doing experiments as a kid. I mean, some of them, there were terrible mishaps. I mean, he accidentally set his trash can on fire, and as a young boy. And as he got older, he was trying to figure out the social world. He got in bar fights, and things like this. And was very open about things that went wrong, as well as things that went right. And that's a very important lesson to have learned, that it's okay to make mistakes. You're gonna make mistakes, but it would be far worse not to try something new. And so being open to experimentation, not just in the lab, but generally, going out, connecting with people. I mean, like you and I have done, it can open a whole new world. And so even though project management may feel very narrow, it's the foundation on which your skills as a project manager rest is actually very broad. And curiosity and diligence and self-discipline, those are other qualities, but they all go together.
Yeah.
And so, yes, for young people, it's like, do lots of experiments. Be prepared to fail. Don't beat yourself up. Just keep going.
I love I love this. And I'm not sure if you've heard what young people are calling that what when when first attempts
Yeah.
don't look good, they call it cringe.
Oh, yes.
And I understand it is cringe. I'm actually writing a piece about the concept of embracing cringe and
Yes.
embracing that first attempt and how it may not work out, but it teaches us so much.
Yes, yes. I mean, it's really funny. I had a friend, Seth Roberts, who was at Caltech for a while, eventually became a UC Berkeley psychology professor. And we became friends. And he would always say, if anything, if I had a project or a paper or whatever that crashed and burned, it didn't matter. He would always say, "So, what did we learn from this experience?" And even though he passed away, I think in 2014, whenever anything bad happens, now I can hear Seth's voice in my head saying, so what did we learn from this experience? So yeah, that will be with me forever.
I love this. I'm gonna adopt this and ask myself those questions on my many failed attempts at various things. Um, so before I ask this last question here, I want to let the audience know that we're going to have a Q&A a time in a moment. And so please do type your Q&A questions in the chat. That's one of the lovely aspects of having a live podcast. And so go ahead and start to put those in. Stacy, who's coordinating in the background. Thank you so much, Stacy. She is going to collect those and then ask those verbally to you. But while everyone's thinking about their questions, um, I want to ask about. I want to ask more about what you're hoping for this next season of your life to bring beyond Caltech. What would you like your message of social entrepreneurship? How would you like it to resound and resonate with the world?
Let's see. Well, I think that what I learned from social entrepreneurship is that there are many opportunities out there for people to make a difference in a really broad way. And I am hoping that I will be able to apply what I learned in the PhD from social entrepreneurs who figured out how to create social value and environmental value and commercial value from inside their organizations. They taught me a lot in my research. And what I'd like to be able to do, if possible, is to find ways to pass that on to other people. So, I mean, I walk around talking about the thesis, but that's kind of normal for a PhD student to do. But I'm staying curious, and I'm trying to use whatever's at my disposal to learn new things. And I mean, this is a tiny, tiny, tiny thing. Is I've been learning from ChatGPT, from talking to ChatGPT, how to improve the quality of life for our cat, Winter, at home, who started out, being a bit hyperactive at our house, but we worked with him. And with ChatGPT, I'd send photographs and saying, our cat's doing this. What is this? What is happening? And we worked over several weeks and months, and somehow ChatGPT and I have formed this partnership where we actually improved the life of a cat. Now, that's a tiny, tiny thing.
Love it.
But it absorbed me a lot. I mean, I think it mystified my sister Keija a bit. I was like, what are you doing? Exactly. And I would tell people, say, this AI helped me help my cat. But you see, all those things, there are opportunities everywhere. There are doors open everywhere. If you just stay curious and follow your curiosity, all sorts of things will reveal themselves. And I'm kind of hoping that now that I've been sitting here at Caltech, that maybe somebody else at Caltech will want to connect with me and say, hi.
Absolutely.
Hi. And we'll go from there.
Absolutely. Yes, indeed, they will. I can already see them getting their emails ready to send to you. And actually, we will ask about how those listeners can connect with you. Stacy, any questions that we have from the audience ready here?
I don't see anything in here yet, but
Okay.
it'd be
I
great
just
if we
opened the
can see.
web chat. Okay, fantastic. Yes, if anybody has any questions, please do put them in there. And while we wait for those to pop up, how can others reach out to you and follow your work?
Right. Okay. Well, I have an email. Should I say that out loud on the air or do we wait?
Yeah, I think maybe LinkedIn and they can reach out to you for your,
yes,
I just don't want you to get some spam.
Find me on LinkedIn.
Melody McClaren.
Yes. Yes, I am on LinkedIn. If somebody wants to send me messages on LinkedIn. Facebook, no, I tend to use that for personal stuff like talking about my cat. But But let me think. I do, well, if you go to LinkedIn, there is a website. You could get to me through, I think, mcclarenpartners.co.uk. That's another channel. But yeah, you can engage with me on LinkedIn. I'm perfectly happy to do that. Talk about my research, or any other topics like, how can you use ChatGPT to help your cat? I'm getting good at that.
We got an expert here, people. We got an expert. All right. I don't see any questions. That's totally fine. It's been such a lovely conversation with you, and I'm so excited to see how your work inspires others within large and small corps to create more value socially and with the bottom line as well.
Yes, yes, that's right. It's never either or, it's always both and.
I love that. Thank you so much to our guests. As you know, we have, as I mentioned in the beginning, we have an AI for project management course that will premiere this weekend on Saturday. We still have some spots left, so if you're interested in that, we will teach you not how to use AI for your cat, but you can take the learnings from the course to apply them to whatever you'd like. The class will be run 2 Saturdays. It will be from for I believe 8 hours both Saturdays, and you do get some PMI PDUs, and so that's a wonderful offering that we are giving to our project management community through our Caltech Center for Technology and Management Education programming. Melody McClaren, thank you so much for teaching us, and thank you so much for this wonderful work you did, and I'm excited to watch you continue to grow.
Well, thank you for reaching out to me in the library. It's been life-changing. Thank you, Jen.
Thank you, everyone. We'll see you next time.